Hello, best of Trekkers! Today we're going to analyze the final episodes of every complete season of Star Trek on this edition of...
Yeah, it's the best five, worst five, know what I mean? Yeah, it's the best five, worst five Treks ever seen.
Over the past nearly 60 years, there have been exactly 9 shows to reach their finale, and with no confirmation and a hasty sale, we're assuming that Prodigy has probably reached its end to round out this list. Some at the bottom of the list I wouldn't say are bad, but end up in the worst category purely based on others being better. So, per the norm, we're starting with the 5th worst. Life itself. Given the amount of hate that surrounded Discovery as a whole, I think this is about the best ending we could have hoped for. It both ties up its season arc in a satisfactory manner, and, with the exception of Detmer and Owo, ties up many of the show's loose threads and character storylines. It even sets up Discovery to encounter Craft, fulfilling what we saw in the short trek Calypso. A decent, purely middle-of-the-road Trek finale. Number 4. The Counterclock Incident. As a finale, this falls pretty flat, but considering this problematic show was cancelled after just 6 episodes into its 2nd season, it's actually quite good as far as the animated series goes. We get the introduction of Commodore Robert April, which becomes important in Strange New Worlds. We get to see one of the more interesting other universes in Trek, so different that space is white with a black star field. There's actually a lot to like in this episode, but a finale that sends the show off, it is not. Number 3. The Last Generation. I have absolutely no idea how it's possible that this is a 9.4 on IMDb. Other than sheer nostalgia. There's so much that remains not tied up here, it's hard for me to declare Picard's final episode to be anything but a failure. Why was Jack important? Are the Borg done as a species, or is this cube an outlier? How did a Borg cube sticking out of Jupiter get missed by Starfleet? What was the connection between the Borg Queen and Vadic? Laris? Laris who? The lack of answers to these questions, amongst other oddities, land this episode in this rank. It was nice to see the TNG crew on the D and hear Majel Barrett Roddenberry as the computer again, but nostalgia alone does not a finale make. In a future Trek iteration, I would like to see what's with Q in his post-credit appearance, but otherwise, this is neither a great episode nor a decent closure to a series. Number 2. Turnabout Intruder. The penultimate episode of TOS, All Our Yesterdays, would have actually been a halfway decent ending to the show. Instead, they just had to turn out one more, and it's an absolute mess for a bunch of reasons. I will say I like how Sandra Smith plays Kirk in Lester's body. She nails the performance. But overall, the terrible hysterical woman trope that plays out throughout have aged very poorly. Not to mention, this does absolutely nothing to tie up the series and give our main characters a proper send-off. And the worst finale at number 1? These Are the Voyages. It should surprise absolutely no one that this finds its way to the worst finale in Trek history. While to some degree, it does give us at least an okay send-off to some of our main characters, at least more than TOS did, it also took a popular character from us right at the end for very little reason. It also stole the thunder from the actors of this show by bringing Jonathan Frakes and Marina Sirtis into it, which overshadows them a bit. If this holodeck narrative had played out earlier in the season, I think it would have been fine, but as a finale, it cheapens the impact of Enterprise. I will say the final moments showing the ship's name Enterprise with the classic "Boldly Go" message was a nice way to wrap this turd sandwich in a pretty bow. As we flip over to the best finales in Trek, if you're enjoying the content, please consider a like and subscribe. At 5th best, The New Next Generation. The most recent finale on this list of Lower Decks was quite good. It didn't feel as much like a goodbye as a see you later. They didn't know the show was cancelled when it was written, but it does do a good job of both tying things up and setting up something for a possible future. They packed so many callbacks to other Trek through the lens of many universes, It was quite a treat to put a period on Trek's first comedic show that's already paved the way for a future live-action Trek comedy. Number 4. Ouroboros. Much like Lower Decks, the ending of the recent season of Prodigy set up a possible third season, which is currently in limbo, but with serious doubts surrounding a renewal on the streaming service most known for doing 2 seasons and done. Honestly, this season of a kids show is right up there with Trek's best, like season 6 of DS9. And it was well punctuated by a great blend of drama, action, and character development. For a show that was sold off at the 11th hour, if this is its finale, it's brilliant, and I cannot recommend the show enough, even for adults. Number 3. What You Leave Behind. With the exception of the fate of Ben Sisko at the end, there wasn't really anything in this episode we didn't see coming. It's just the logical closure to all the storylines built up over the course of the show. That's not a bad thing. It's played out at a very high level from all involved. What it definitely does better than any other Trek finale is the saying goodbye to our characters part. While I simultaneously wish the episode knew the meaning of a logical closure point, no one can say that our characters aren't well sent off, and even the producers and writers in the audience of the big send-off scene in Vic's lounge. Though some are no longer with us, we as fans are still waiting for some kind of follow-up 25 years later. Number 2. All Good Things. While this particular episode follows Picard and doesn't necessarily do the best job of saying goodbye to all of our characters, it is definitely a great goodbye to the show itself, and is likely the most interesting story told in a finale in Trek. Between getting Picard to realize that humanity is on the cusp of its true renaissance, if we just open our minds a bit more, and getting him to see that he's never truly opened up and let people close to him in his friends, it's a very heartwarming ending to probably Trek's most consequential television show. Number 1. Endgame. I know this one is controversial, but this is my list and I'm making this case. I feel like Voyager's finale is the best balance between story and saying goodbye to characters. This episode arguably has the highest stakes for the galaxy of any episode in Trek. The Borg are sidelined and no longer a threat to anyone for at least the foreseeable future. On top of that, we look in on every main character, both in a bleak future, and give them key things to do in the episode itself. I also feel like its hard ending plays into the theory that you should always leave the audience wanting more, and this certainly does that. Through modern Trek, we've actually seen what became of every major character except for Neelix, which shows the lasting mark they've left on us in the fanbase. What's your favorite Trek finale?